What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well. Hey, I realize there's one thing I want to tack on to the little series I did about how God set me free from pornography addiction and from lust. And I kind of started touching on it in my video that was talking about stop avoiding temptation. Like, but the main point of that video was you don't have to run away from tempting thoughts. But the alternative of like learning how to like confront those thoughts without it feeling so tempting, I want to expound upon a little bit more, and it's basically renewing your mind. It's learning how to think rightly about something. So if you're not going to run away from something, and simultaneously you're not going to allow that something to control you, it's one thing to say stop running from temptation, and then every time you're tempted you choose to sin in the way that you're tempted to sin. Like, in that case, maybe you should run away, right? Except you actually shouldn't, because it's not actually going to set you free. But hey, if you've already mastered the not running away part, now it's time for the okay, now how do you confront it? And I just want to get super practical in this example for me, as it related to lust, pornography. Like, you think in your mind, I need to make sure I don't think about these things. I don't want to think about girls. I don't want to think about, sex. I don't want to think about the physical stimulants that I might see throughout my day or whatever. And instead of that, what I needed to learn was, how do I think rightly? How do I think appropriately? And so for that, for me, it meant acknowledging things and calling things super plainly rather than trying to push them out of your mind, So what it might have, I know I'm being kind of circular, but I'm getting there. Okay, guys, hang with me here. So let's say the old me, let's say I'm walking around a college campus and then someone's bottom's hanging out of their shorts. And let's say the old me would have been really triggered by that. The old me in the old way would have been like, turn away and like, oh no. And like, don't look over there, don't think about that. Now, the new me would still think it's a good idea to not look over there, But instead of just like trying to blot that memory out of my mind, or trying to like suppress that or avoid that or whatever, as if I could run away from the image that just got stamped onto my brain, a healthier thing to do would be to process that image with God, to invite God into the moment of what you're experiencing. And it's partly about just praying honest prayers. Rather than praying what you think would be a holy prayer, praying a legitimate prayer. Lord, I just saw the bottom of a girl's bottom. I feel like I want to keep looking at that thing. But I know that deep down I don't want to. But that happened. And then here's the important part of what I'm trying to get at, is not even just praying honest prayers, but like getting God's perspective on the whole thing. So a couple ways you could do this. One could be like asking God about like how he sees this person, like, Lord, what do you think about her? Lord, what do you say about her? And you could even do this, I guess, like if you were struggling with lust in pornography or whatever. Like, the reality is, these are human beings that God made in his image, right? People aren't just objects. They're not just bodies. They're not just body parts. Like, these are people. And even if someone's personal self-esteem is super low, like let's say I met someone and they were like, I don't have a soul, I am just a walking body, and the purpose of my existence is to be feasted upon by the eyes of men around the world. Like, even if someone believes that about themselves, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily true. And I know for sure that that's not true. I know that every human being has a soul. And I'm not trying to get controversial here, because, it's not very popular these days to try to tell someone who they are. You want to let people define themselves for themselves. And so I can respect that trend. I'm not going to go over there and try to convince that person that they are who I think they are. But the point is, if I ask God for his perspective, probably it'll change the way that I interact with this person. Like, I don't know if you've heard the phrase, like, you can't hate someone and understand them at the same time. Like, you can only despise things that you don't understand, or like judge someone and understand them at the same time. Like, when you know someone well, you understand why they're behaving the way that they're behaving, and it elicits empathy and mercy in your heart, and so you don't react as negatively to them. I'd say it's pretty similar with lust, although it's not quite the same. But like, the more that you actually know someone, the harder it's going to be to like actually lust after them for real. Like, you're just not going to want to engage them in the same way. And that's one reason why, like, it's a lot more uncommon for there to be like sexually inappropriate relationships in like adult siblings or like someone and their parent or something as adults. I'm not talking about like molestation scenarios, but like two willing people, whatever. We don't have to get in the weeds of this. But hopefully you get the main point I'm trying to communicate, which is asking God for his heart for who this person is as a person. And oh my goodness, I thought I was in park, and I was not in park. Now I gotta back up. Woo! Thankfully I caught myself before I ran into my garbage bin, trash can. It's the first time saying garbage can, I think. Anyways. Alright, here we go. Park. How about that? Asking God for his heart. It's going to be harder to lust. Okay. The other thing is asking God what he thinks about sex as a whole, and sexuality as a whole, and even like body parts. Or thanking God. So like, God, thank you that you made the body of a woman. God, thank you that you put breasts on them. That was an awesome idea. Thank you for like how attractive people are. I love that you made people desirable, that we want to look at them and not away from them. And even praying truths about sexuality. Like, God, I thank you that sex is not just a physical pleasure. It's not something to be made light of or manipulated or turned into something evil, or even something that's like just purely physical. But I thank you that there is a emotional connection. There's a spiritual vulnerability that happens in the place of true sex that is made to create a deep bond that can never be separated. God, I thank you that love songs for decades and decades have been centered around wishing they could have someone back or missing someone, and that those are often in the connotation of a sexual relation, because something about sex makes us unite, makes us bond. God, I trust you that the way you made sex is the best way. Lord, I don't want to spend my whole life avoiding the topic of sex. If you made this and you call it good, then I want to see this as something that is good. And what do you say I'm supposed to interact with this? Or like, how do you say I'm supposed to interact with this? Like, oh, great, thank you that you reserved it for marriage, that you designed a place and a space for me to have healthy sexuality and for it to be a blessing for my life and a blessing for my sexual partner, rather than something that one of us comes away on top or gets what we want or misses something or is wounded in some way, you know, like, and I could go on and on, but like the point is, what is true about sex? What is true about lust? What is true about the body of a woman? What is true about each individual specific person that you might be lusting after or fantasizing about or whatever it may be? And think about those things. And that was hard for me for a while, because as someone that was addicted to pornography, you think, oh no, if I think about this, that means I'm going to go sin. Like, this is going to cause me to stumble. This is going to be tempting for me. And maybe at first it will feel that way, but it's actually not. Like, it's the only reason it feels that way is because you're needing to retrain your brain, and that's what I'm getting at, is this retraining of what, not just what do you avoid, but what do you gravitate to, instead of just seeing someone and then feeling triggered and then trying to look away or pretend like it didn't happen, or rebuke that person in your heart for wearing whatever they're wearing or whatever it may be. Lean into the experience. Again, I'm not saying continue feasting upon this person's body, but I'm saying, get this situation out of your heart and out of, the shadow of your eye, and just get it right here. And get it right here, and thank the Lord for making this person. Thank it, acknowledge what you saw, acknowledge what it made you feel, what it made you want, and then ask God about, you might not know God's intentions yet about sexuality or whatever it may be, and that's okay, but having these honest prayers, even things that feel super shallow, I didn't actually personally do this very much, but I totally could have. For example, and again, sorry if this is just feels inappropriate to you or whatever, but okay, let's let's say I saw someone that triggered me, and let's say they had blonde hair, Lord, repent for whatever, lust, ask him about his heart. Lord, I've been noticing that I'm stumbling more as it relates to blondes and brunettes. Do I prefer blondes? Should I marry a blonde one day? Or man, I feel like I'm more of a legs person than a shoulders person, to keep it PG, or whatever it may be. And again, just take these things to God. If you're spending time in relationship with God and you're being honest with him about how you're feeling, you're not lusting. You're not, there's no better place, there's no safer place to battle with temptation, to learn how to retrain your brain, than in the presence of God. There's no safer person to process this with than God. And how ironic is it if we would think, oh, I would never pray a prayer, acknowledging the beauty of a woman's butt. Why would I do that? That's just going to lead me astray. How ironic to think that thought, if your alternative is to suppress that memory and then later, within the next day, week, or month, go watch pornography. How is that more pure than having a conversation with God about your sexual preferences and urges? You know what I mean? And he made you, he knows you're going to have sexual preferences and urges. You're not supposed to make them go away. You're supposed to learn how to deal with them, and even the fact that you have sexual desire is a gift from God, and so you don't want to spend your whole life rebuking God for the things that he made, but you have to appreciate what he made with a delicacy and an honor. It's a really special, amazing thing that he made. So what I'm basically just trying to say is you got to think about this more, not less, a lot. Think how much in your life you've been tempted in some way by some type of sexuality or some type of emotional, intimate connection. Like, how much of your life have you spent battling those thoughts and temptations if you were to add up all the minutes? And now, how many minutes have you spent time actively conversing with God about those things? Sexuality, intimate connection, etc. Like, if these things, hopefully, like, well, most likely, you spend a lot more time battling on your own and a lot less time actually talking with God about it. And what if we got it 2-to-1? You know, like, you spend way more time talking with God about these things than you do actually being tempted by the worldly examples or counterfeits. If that was the case, I bet the temptations would feel so much less tempting, right? Because you've already established a basis, a foundation of truth that guides you and grounds you in the midst of these stimulants or triggers or temptations that might get you off course, you know? Like, you might see someone, whatever, that girl with the booty hanging out of her shorts, and you might think, instead of, oh man, don't look at that, oh man, I really want to look at that, oh yeah, you might think, man, Lord, thank you that I am a sexual creature. God, thank you that you made me to be attracted. Lord, I don't want to see that and feel indifferent as if you didn't create something beautiful. I don't want to be unmoved, but at the same time, Lord, I just thank you that I want to save that place in my heart for my wife, that I want to appreciate my wife's body, and if I'm going to do that well, I need to remove from my mind and my heart all these other bodies. I can't just spend my life trying to look for the next thing to look at. Like, I need to spend my life guarded and holy and pure. And so, Lord, I just pray for that woman's husband one day. Pray that he would appreciate her, you know. And if, Lord, if I'm supposed to be your husband, then Lord, help me to actually talk to her instead of just looking at her booty from across the campus, you know. like whatever. This is all super hypothetical. These aren't like verbatim prayers that I've ever prayed, but if I did, it'd probably be good, you know. Like, again, how much are you talking with God about this and letting him define for you how to feel, how to respond, versus just battling with temptation? I remember one time when my wife and I lived in the UAE for 3 months, I was spending time with God at a Starbucks. I don't know, so cultural. It was a little bit cultural, though, because they would always spell my name with crazy spelling. So there was no Jeremy out there in the Middle East. It was just Chammy or Chimmy or Jammy or Jimmy. Jemi would be Jimmy. Anyways, and I'm just journaling, and I just become aware through my peripheral vision, whatever. Someone walks in to the Starbucks as a customer that's not wearing a ton, which is pretty rare in the Middle East, you know, so I was a little bit, I guess, like, shocked or off-put by that, whatever. But I didn't, like, look. But basically I was like, man, I'm pretty sure that she's literally showing some bottom right now in the middle of this mall in the UAE, which is just, like, again, shocking in the UAE specifically. And so I'm just, like, staring down in my journal, and I guess the way, I can't remember exactly, but I think I hadn't seen her bottom. I guess she came in walking forwards the way that I saw her, and so, but then I guess the way she was waiting for her drink or something like that, like her bottom was facing towards me. So I'm like, I know if I look up, I'm gonna find out if she's showing her bottom or not. And I don't want to find out, but I do want to find out. But I hope that she's not doing that, especially here. You know, this is just me going through the motions. And at this point, I've already been free from pornography for a couple years. So, you know, still battling the battles over here. And so I'm just, like, talking to God about it. And what I feel like he says is, again, this isn't verbatim, but what he says is essentially, she is showing her bottom. Like, yes, her butt is showing. And in the moment, I was so offended that that's what I felt like God said. I was like, God, why would you tell me that? Like, that doesn't help me. Like, I'm trying to not look right now, you know? And so I asked that, right? I lean into it. I'm talking to him about it, like, and I just felt like he responded like, "Hey, you need to like satisfy this part of you that's curious or that looks at something to see if there's something there that you don't want to see. It's not a healthy habit. I'm telling you, there is something there you don't want to see. You don't have to fact check it. You don't have to verify it. You don't have to police it. Like, you can just be aware that that opportunity exists and just say no, and so anyways, long story short, it felt tempting in my heart. Like, literally, when he said, yes, her bottom showing, immediately I felt an increase in temptation to look at her. But God was not tempting me. It was my brain needing to learn how to process sexuality or sexual opportunity or the body of a woman. Like, I needed to learn how to process it in a different way. And that's what God was getting at. And so we had this conversation. The woman came and left. I had never looked up. I didn't see her bottom. I'm so thankful. And at this point, I can't even remember anything about that, like what she looked like, what she was wearing. Like, I cannot, I don't even know her, like her hair color, her skin color. Like, I don't know. But I do remember this conversation I had with God super clearly. Obviously not quite verbatim, but it's been 6 years, okay? And that was pretty close to verbatim. All right, pretty close. And it was a defining moment. So again, just you probably just think less of me after this whole video, because it's like, man, is Jeremy just like a sex dog? No. I'm a human being, all right? Not a sex dog. Jeez. But God, man, God made me with sexual urges, and I'm so thankful that he did, because I'm not sitting here at 28 years old with ED, okay? I got a wifey that is amazing. Like, I have it, someone that I can just like desire in every way, including physically, and clinging. That's another example, I guess, of clinging to the truth of, man, instead of just, oh, don't look at that. Now that I'm married, it's like, man, why don't I just imagine my wife right now? Or not like imagining her in a fantasy way, but just thinking about her, picturing her, remembering our experiences together, whatever. Let me appreciate her body, not just try to divest from this other trigger, Now, if you're not married, you can't really do that one yet, but that's a little different than I see someone else, I get triggered, now I'm aroused, and I come home and I want to have sex with Megan as an outlet for my sexual craving. That's not really the same thing. That's more like using your spouse as an outlet for sexual gratification, which is not going to age super well, because it's not true love. But if I can replace, instead of this temptation, now I'm going to think about my wife, and like untied to what we do or don't do sexually in the next day or 2 or 5, like, just let me appreciate her more, think about her more, imagine her more. Like, again, that's just another example of leaning into the true things, into the right things, retraining your mind, rather than just avoiding. So sorry this was long-winded. I wanted to get practical though, so hey, hopefully this is helpful. If it is, then hey, it's all free here at Chef J Train Solutions. So that's all I got for y'all today. I'll talk to y'all soon. Life is worship, God is love.